Welcome to What's in a Game. On today's show, NBA Chicken is back to help us in grading the Western Conference Offseasons. Which teams accomplished their goals and which just fell flat? Which teams didn't have defined goals at all? We'll answer these questions and more. Stay tuned. Welcome back to What's in a Game. I'm Grace Jean here with my co-host Will Jones and one of the best friends of the show, NBA Chicken. How are you doing today, NBA Chicken?
Doing pretty good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good on this Saturday. What about you, Will? I know we don't normally do shows this early, and I know it's particularly early for you guys on the you guys are in Mountain Time right now. I'm currently on vacation in the Eastern Time Zone. So
yeah, it's early Saturday morning, but I'm good, and it's gonna be a long day of streaming. So thanks for hanging out, everyone. If you're hanging out on a Saturday, and come on to Serbian Corner later today, because I'll be on there.
Absolutely. Thanks for that reminder. Will is going to be on Serbian Corner immediately following this stream, and we're going to try to. No, we are going to get him out of here on time. So if we start rushing towards the end, you guys know why. So definitely check that out over on the DNVR channel after the show. I want to get into the discussion because I don't want to feel too rushed as we talk about all these teams. I want it to be a fun, casual discussion about all of the Denver Nuggets rivals in the Western Conference and how their offseason stacked up to the Nuggets. So, before we dive in, though, just wanted to ask everybody who's here to please do us a favor, hit the like and subscribe buttons. It really does help us out with the algorithm as we try to grow the channel. Next goal is 1,500 subs. We're currently at 1,100 or thereabouts. So help us out. Hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell so that you don't miss a notification for the show. And usually we would get notifications out more than, this soon before the show. But, Saturday mornings are Saturday mornings. Am I right, people? All right. Let's jump into the meat of this show today, guys. We are going to be issuing grades to the various Western Conference teams and their off seasons in particular. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to do this in alphabetical order, reverse alphabetical, or start from the middle. And I decided the start from the middle way was like the most, not the most fair, but actually the most interesting because I can kind of bounce around a little bit. Hopefully won't miss any teams in the process, but yeah, Will, is that okay with you?
For sure. For people listening, the chat is having a little bit of an error, so I'm going to try to fix that during the stream while we do this. Otherwise, you can still type in it. I just can't see what you're saying, but maybe Grace can. Yeah.
If I see any fun chats, I'll just read them from here.
Do you have any quick thoughts on that Serbia-Slovenia game?
Oh, right. That happened. That game happened. So I actually caught the highlights after the fact because I couldn't catch it live. And yeah, it was a rout. Like, Slovenia is really, really bad. It was honestly one of those games where, and I felt this way about Serbia throughout the group, or not the group play, but these warm-up games, pre-Eurobasket warm-up games, is that there are certain games, I think most of them, where I'm like, well, they're playing like pretty well, but it's not like they're playing like, several tiers above like, wow, this team looks completely unbeatable. It's more like they look that way compared to their competition. And that's definitely how I felt about this game versus Slovenia, where I'm just like, I don't even know what Slovenia is trying to do half the time. I was pretty surprised because I felt like, if nothing else, a Luka team, even if it's not good, should look somewhat competent. And I just felt like offensively, and I just didn't feel like Slovenia really had that in this game. So there wasn't really much for me to evaluate on Serbia's side. Because I'm just like, yeah, this team is several tiers above this competition. Chicken, did you catch any of that game?
No, I did not. I just saw the highlights, like you said.
Yeah.
I was expecting it to be closer, but
yeah, at least a little bit. But like, I didn't expect to come back and be like, okay, maybe it would be out of reach by the time I get home, because I came home right at the top of the fourth quarter. but Serbia was up like 40 points. I'm like, okay, this is over. I don't, nothing else to say on my part. Will, did you have any specific thoughts on that game?
No, I have to go back and rewatch everything. I just saw it was a complete blowout, and it was, over pretty quickly. There was blown coverages early from Slovenia, and then even when
you blow coverages against Serbia, like you're cooked.
Yeah, and even when they were trying to do some more complicated double screening actions on the perimeter, and let's say Slovenia did guard it well, then Bogey was just like one-on-one ice wing. Someone just hit a three right in their face anyway. So I was like, okay, well, I don't know how much of a chance they have right now. And it was over pretty quickly. So
yeah, that is what it is. All right, let's jump into the Western Conference offseason grades. So like I said, the way I want to do this is we're going to start kind of from the middle of the alphabet and kind of work our way out. I might jump around a little bit, hopefully not too much, just for Will's sake, doing the tech on all this in the back here. But I think the way we'll do it is we'll kind of take turns. List, like I'll go through each team. I'll list what their moves were. And either I'll give my assessment, or it'll be Chicken's turn, or it'll be Will's turn to give their assessment and their grade. And if any of us disagree, like we can make the case. But otherwise, we can kind of move on, because there are going to be some teams on here for sure that it's like, I don't know how much I want to talk about this, like the Pelicans offseason, for example. Although there are going to be some, I think, pretty harsh critiques of some of the things that they did. Okay, so to establish an order, so we're not, running around like chickens with our heads cut off. No offense, chicken. That was just the first thing that came to mind. We'll do me, chicken, Will, and then kind of keep going in that order for our grades and assessments. And then obviously, if you disagree, we can fight. From there, though, if there's a team that you're particularly passionate about and you really want to give your assessment, Will or NBA Chicken, please feel free, even if you want to chime in agreement. All right, let's start with the Minnesota Timberwolves were the team I had in my center here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
All right, starting with Minnie.
Yeah, Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves extended Naz Reid 5 years, $125 million. That's a 4+1 with a player option on that 5th year. He was going to be a free agent. They extended Julius Randle 3 years, $100 million. That's a 2+1 with a player option. They retained Joe Ingles and lost Nickeil Alexander-Walker in free agency. Lost Josh Minot in free agency. He wasn't really part of the rotation. And they drafted, is it Joan or Johan Berenger? I believe he's French. My assessment on this team is a B, like just a solid 85, right? They kept Naz, right? It was a question about how far under the second apron the directive for this team was going to be in terms of where their salary cap needed to hit after being in the second apron last year, and new ownership coming in and all that kind of stuff. So they were able to keep Naz at least. They didn't have to trade Julius Randle in order to do so, because they got him to take a pretty... it's not a team-friendly deal, but it's a better deal than I thought they were going to have to make in order to extend Julius this season. Although the annual number is not as high. It's slightly less than, I believe, what his player option would have been if he had just accepted his player option. But then they would have had the ability, or I think more flexibility, to trade him. Like, I don't think this is a particularly tradable deal even at that number, just because they added years to it. But it's friendly in that he's good enough right now, I think, in like most circumstances, to be like your second best player throughout a regular season for a really good team, really good playoff team, maybe even a contender. We'll see how things mesh next year. And he's going to be making sub max money. Like, that's just a win, right? My main knock on them for this is they're paying Naz Reid starter money, and I don't know that he's expected to start. Like, he's going to be a really overpaid sixth man. And I also think they didn't really address their needs for help with perimeter creation, in particular creation for others, right? They do have a lot of guys that can get their own shot, but this team is so reliant on Mike Conley to kind of make all the pieces fit together coherently. And we saw that even in the playoffs against OKC, where you're like, oh, why does this team like collapse when Mike Conley is off the floor? And maybe it's just the chemistry between Randall and Rudy not meshing again late in the season, even though we started to see them like find a rhythm after the All-Star break. Even before the All-Star break, it was while Julius was out that the team started to mesh, but when he came back, they were still like, they were rolling. But again, like, playoffs come along and the offense is not really as explosive as you would want to see with the talent that they have, and it's really like a coherence lack thereof, I think. They're hoping that Rob Dillingham makes a leap, but based on his summer league, it's like, I don't know if we should be expecting the second year undersized guard to make this collection of players like work coherently. But they still have a lot of tradable pieces, in, like, for example, Jaden McDaniels is there, and I think he's so far living up to his contract. My question is whether Naz Reid is going to live up to the deal that he has. They're not looking to trade him, clearly, because they gave him a 5-year deal. That's not something that you do for a player that you would be looking to trade. That's a long-term commitment to that player, which is why it's also strange to me that they didn't try to find a trade for Julius Randle, because it's like you're kind of committing to Naz in every way but one, and that one is making him a starter. So it's a little bit incoherent, and that's why this wasn't like a B+ or an A- off season. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
don't have too many notes. I was going to also say a lot of what they've done in preparation for this season was done last offseason.
Yeah.
Trading up for Rob Dillingham, getting rid of that future first, taking Shannon. Am I forgetting his name? But yeah, I think they're expecting them to take. Yeah, they're expecting them to take some steps forward next season. And I agree with you in terms of them not having a secondary ball handler or playmaker. I don't think Nickeil Alexander-Walker was the best at that, but losing him does kind of mean that Rob has to step into that role. And I don't really know if he was really bringing that skill set in college. So I'm really interested to see if Tim Conley's fixation on small guards is going to pay off this time.
What grade are you going to give him?
I gave him a B-. I was leaning towards like C, just because they really didn't improve on the margins, but are kind of banking on internal development, which isn't forced.
Yeah, I would have gone with B- too, but I'm like, you know what? Getting Julius to agree to that much sub max right now, I think is good for them, even though like it's good for them more medium term, not short term, because it's a less tradable deal now than it would have been if he just took the player option. But they also weren't forced. They could have been forced either this offseason or at the trade deadline to be like, we have to make a decision about Julius Randle or we're going to lose him for nothing. And that's a tough, thing for a team to accept after they traded, Karl Anthony Towns for him the year before. So it kind of like took some pressure off of them. And that's why I bumped it up to a B.
Yeah, I mean, they're a good organization. Like, we just had a comment from Patrick O'Ryan that Chris Finch is a good coach. He makes up for a lot of deficiencies. Obviously, they have Tim Connolly there. So they have a good foundation to have a solid team. They've gone to the Western Conference Finals a bunch of times. And I think at this point, they're in trying to keep Ant happy mode. not that they did anything super significant like on that front this offseason, of course, like trading for some big star like KD or something, even though I guess they tried and he didn't want to go there. But they're going to have to be in that mode to try to make sure Ant wants to stay long term. The keep Nas, that was important for the fans, though I will be interested to see how he ages and plays through this contract. I'm hoping he doesn't do as good as his contract says. But you're right about Julius and that they got him for less than he could have got. But I still am expecting them. Don't they have to trade him at some point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because they paid Nas. That's the thing, is I don't think that this quite makes sense in terms of the balance, their front court, back court balance right now.
Yeah. So I wish if that trade was completed and was a little bit down the line in terms of this timeline of this plan with this player, I would give them maybe a higher grade, or I want to grade them based on how they move off Julius Randle. But they almost retained all their players like Nas. And then if they got Nah too, that would have been crazy. And I was almost worried that they were going to be able to.
No, it wasn't going to be possible.
Yeah.
Especially after they extended Julius, we knew, because I was like, oh, they're right up against the second apron. They're not going to be able to pay Nikhil.
Yeah. So when I saw that he left in free agency, I was very happy during that free agency period. And I'm just enjoying the Wolves' downfall. I'm hoping it continues to go down. I get that based on their outlook and what they could have done this offseason and their goals and all that, they pretty much did all they could. So I get the B grade, but I'm going to give them a C+. To reflect my feelings on how they're kind of not getting better, in my opinion. At least not yet.
Okay.
Yes. Let's not forget that menace Luka Garza is off the team too. I feel like every time we played them, he would come off the bench and just.
Well, he doesn't come off the bench unless everybody's injured. But we'd have those games, and then because Jokic doesn't guard him.
Yeah.
All right then. Let's. We got a C plus from Will, B from me, B minus from NBA Chicken. So we're in general agreement about the range here with this team.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next team here, we're gonna do the New Orleans Pelicans. So I'll read off these, and then NBA Chicken, you can give your assessment here. So the New Orleans Pelicans traded their unprotected 2026 first round pick to the Atlanta Hawks to trade up in this last draft in 2025 to get Derek Queen. They drafted Jeremiah Fears also in the lottery. They extended Herb Jones, 3 years, $67 million. That's a 2.1 with a player option added onto his existing deal. So now he's going to be under contract for 5 total years, including that player option. They signed Kevon Looney, 2 years, $16 million, and that's a 1+1 where the second year is a team option. And they traded CJ McCollum for Jordan Poole and Kelly Olynyk, and then moved Kelly Olynyk to the Spurs. Is that right?
Yeah, to the Wizards, and then the Wizards to the Spurs.
To the Wizards, and then the Wizards moved. That's right. Wizards moved into the Spurs. Because the Eastern Conference doesn't want any centers this year. Half the conference is tanking. And then they lost Bruce Brown in free agency. So, Chicken, what is your overall assessment of the New Orleans Pelicans?
I gave them a D-, and I was being pretty generous with that. This is the first year in Joe Dumars' tenure there, and I think he's just made 2 major mistakes right out the back. First of all, trading that unprotected 26th first next year for the 13th pick in this draft. I still can't wrap my head around why he would do that. I think there was some behind the scenes reporting that I forget who they even traded with at this point, but they were on the phone going back and forth. Are you sure this is an unprotected 2026 first year giving us that? Are you certain? And they're like, yes, that's what we're offering. And they're like, okay. I mean, we'll take
Stop
we'll do
asking
the Howard robbery if you're going to give it to us. Yeah. So I thought that was egregious. I mean, that's worth an F in and of itself. But then I know a lot of people were kind of okay with the move of moving CJ and Kelly Olynyk for Jordan Poole and Sadiq Bey, but they also added a ton of salary into their books next year. They had CJ on an expiring, and now you swap that for more salary, and you get a little younger. I don't know if Joe Dumars thinks this is like 2022 and having Jordan Poole and Kevon Looney as like a championship level pairing or something.
About that pairing.
like a culture change, but I just don't agree with it. It's, you know, my friends joke about being in the revolving door of mediocrity, and I think that's kind of where the Pelicans have put themselves, and they're like hitting their head on the door right now.
They're starting to kind of be like Raptors West in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, in a vacuum, their draft picks are really good. I do like Jeremiah Fears. I thought he was maybe the best ball handler of the last 3 draft classes. So that's an upside skill set to have on the roster. But I think we're in this weird phase in the Zion era. Are they going to truly commit to him? Is this the best that they could do to build around him? Or are they kind of hedging on maybe rebuilding for the future after next offseason? I don't really know.
I feel like they're absolutely hedging. my like unusual thing about this offseason, other than obviously trading the 2026 unprotected first to move up, I liked their draft this year, to be clear. Like, I like Derek Queen, I like Jeremiah Fears as well, but they are like, here's some upside prospects we hope they work out. They're not going to be probably immediate positive impact guys. But the weird thing to me was the Herb Jones extension, because what I didn't understand is who called whom to get this done. Like, I don't know a single person who was expecting like Herb Jones was obviously extension eligible, but I don't think there was a single person who had like written an article or had him on a list of like, watch out for these guys that are extension eligible, because what they do is going to like show, like what the team does there is going to show you, you know, their direction, whatever. I don't think anyone expected Herb to be extended because he's a great trade candidate. And also, like, you have him under contract for 2 more years already, including this season. So you could just extend him next year. I didn't really understand that. And I also didn't from Herb, like, did Herb's people call? Because I'm like, do you want to stay in New Orleans? Like, I don't understand like what was going on there.
Yeah.
And he's like clue. A DPOY candidate. It's not like he wouldn't have had a market elsewhere. Like, so I'm like, I didn't really understand that from either side.
So you're giving them a D, Grace?
Yes, I gave them a D. Sorry, to be clear. So I basically agree with Chicken.
Yeah.
It's just too confusing. Lack of coherence.
Gosh, you guys are like, I would give these grades 2, probably like similar to the Wolves, and then you both give Bs, and then I want to give something low. So I almost want to give them an F, but I still have C plus in there. I'm going to give them a D minus as well, just because I want to see, like, I don't believe that much in Jordan Poole, but I want to see how he looks. I want to see if Herb Jones can get better than he even is, because then his contract's going to be really crazy good value, I think. I think getting rid of CJ is good, but it's like questionable how they did it. Obviously, as Chicken just said, Bruce Brown, I obviously don't fault them for that. He was coming to Denver, like he had a locked on laser guided missile sight on Denver, so nothing they could do there. And yeah, I'm more interested in this Trey Murphy thing, like, because I just saw this report from Jake Fisher right before we started streaming that the Warriors, of course, have interest in him, and who really doesn't have interest in him if you can trade for him.
That's like that's like a report that like the Warriors are monitoring Giannis' situation. Like, so is everyone else, and also you've been doing that for years.
Yeah, it's like the Lakers, how like the Lakers are interested in every player and star imaginable, and the report comes out about that every year. If the Pelicans trade him, I'm going to be really pissed, and I'd definitely give them an F, but I don't think it's going to happen this offseason. at least. Apparently, they were batting away the phone calls from the Warriors, and then Jake added that the Spurs were another team to monitor with Trey Murphy. So we'll see. But right now, yeah, D-. They seem like very confused as an organization, but it's not like Dumars is like inexperienced and some complete idiot, but I don't really see the vision yet.
Yeah. But besides these guys and Troy Weaver, who Dumars hired is he officially his title is general manager? Obsessed with centers, like you just know. Got Looney, traded up for Queen. Mm-hmm. Was he already there when they drafted Uzumisi? I know because I think he went midseason. I forget. But yeah, and then when I thought they were going to keep Kelly Olynyk, and then they ended up trading him to the Wizards. But
yeah, I thought that could have been a good. I like Kelly Olynyk. But I don't know how he is these days. A few
years ago, yeah, it's like,
yeah, that's my thing. I haven't like paid close enough attention to him. It hasn't even heard a lot. It's kind of like hard to even know. What he's been doing. So yeah.
All right, so we got D's and D minuses across the board. Mine is a D minus because my grade was a 60, so that's a D minus. Awesome. So let's move on to the Memphis Grizzlies. And Will, this is going to be yours. So they traded Desmond Bane for KCP, Cole Anthony, and 4 first-round picks from the Orlando Magic. That's this past year, 2025, 2026, 2028, and 2030. And they were able to bypass Stepien because they had Denver's 2025 first-round picks, so they were able to give those subsequent years. They also got the 2029 swap rights from the Orlando Magic. So 4 first-round picks and potentially a pick swap in 2029. They extended Jaren Jackson Jr. 5 years, $205 million. That's a 3+1 with a player option. This was basically a renegotiate and extend type deal. So they created some cap space to give him more money this year. That's not quite up to the max. And then he's going to be getting like 30% max money or thereabouts based on anchored to this year's salary cap moving forward. They extended Santi Aldama 3 years, $52 million. That's a 2+1 with a team option. They signed Ty Jerome, 3 years, $28 million. That's a 2+1 with a player option. They signed Jock Landale to a vet minimum, and they drafted Cedric Coward, he's probably of the Western Conference drafted dudes, like first round drafted dudes, which there weren't a lot of because I felt like a lot of the East had most of the picks, and that's probably because Brooklyn had 5 that I know the least about. But Will, why don't you give your overall grade of the Memphis Grizzlies offseason?
All right, I guess I will give them a B. I mean, trading Bane is just such an interesting trade. He's a great player. I'm excited that he's on the Magic, but you get the 4 first-round picks. That's the offer you can't refuse deal for sure. And then you get to extend Jaren Jackson Jr., who they were worried about trying to extend pretty much all season. And if he was going to make all NBA, were they going to be able to offer him that big contract in comparison to other teams? And then it worked out and they got what they wanted. I like Aldama too. It's just like a role player. There are times where he looks pretty good. And then you keep Ty Jerome, who, I don't know, like you don't want to let like these role players on your team just go and be stuck with a bunch of young players to try to be a role players, as we've seen with the Nuggets. So trying to keep some guys around there. Jock Landale, I used to like him more and thought he could be like a good backup center after that playoff season, that playoff series with the Suns when he was playing against Jokic. But I don't know how he's doing these days. He kind of like fell off of any type of spotlight. But like, I don't hate the Grizzlies offseason or anything. Like they're right there. They have KCP. We love KCP. Can he bring some vet leadership to a younger type of team? Get them to play some defense and lock in Jaren Jackson Jr. Obviously, one of the best defensive players in the league, if not the best. So he's going to enjoy that. I actually thought he got
better defensively last season too. Like I thought he was better this year than his DPOY season. Which I, didn't agree with him getting DPOY, but that's easy.
Yeah, but he's really good. And like, what is there really to hate other than, you lose Bane? So in the immediate, are they, a contending team? There's questions with Ja and his all this like leadership stuff and how he's going to be in injury history. So, I mean, this season's a big one for them. I think they have to like stabilize now, but I don't like hate the moves that they did.
So your grade would be?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Chicken.
I was going to say, I thought it was really interesting the second the Desmond news dropped that people were thinking that the Grizzlies were going to be doing a fire sale and tanking.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of an indication for how a lot of people were perceiving this going. They were already kind of a middling playoff team, and now you take away one of their best perimeter players and are trying to replace him in the aggregate. I don't really know if you're improving in that area doing it that way. KCP, I don't really know if he's going to have a revived version of his 2023 self in Memphis, especially after being so disappointing in Orlando. There's just not enough all around tangibly on this roster today for me to think that they improved. So I'm leaning towards like a C plus B minus. I put B minus on my notes, but as I'm talking right now, I almost feel like it's a little worse just because they're not going to be better next year.
Better in a Western Conference. That's pretty tough. Yeah. I had B minus for what it's worth. It's really tough to grade these sort of soft reset type off seasons because you're like, okay, what was the goal here? So I was just trying to look at two things. Did they accumulate assets as part of whatever their big or small reset moves was? And they absolutely did. They got 4 first-round picks from the Orlando Magic. And the Magic are projected to be a pretty good team over the next few years. So it's like they're not going to be great, but you got a lot of them. But then the other question is, did they increase or decrease their flexibility with whatever move they made? And they definitively increased it because Bane had more years left on his deal than either KCP or Cole Anthony. They buy out Cole Anthony. They did. Leave him. And then they got KCP, who only has 2 years left on his deal, and he's still going to be a useful player for them, even if he's not necessarily living up to that contract. And next year he'll be an expiring contract that's like a pretty good size too, right? So they definitely, I think, did both things of accumulating assets and increasing their flexibility, or at least not decreasing it. So that's why, in terms of like, okay, this was a soft reset, they didn't get better, but they did the two things that you basically want to achieve when you're doing a soft reset. So I was a little bit, if you're, between like C plus B minus, I went with the B minus on this one for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah, it is just weird to it's just weird to grade them because I don't know what their goal really is either. Like, and
right.
They're kind of in this in between.
My question is like, what should be what is this team's expectation next year? Is it to make the playoffs? Is it to make a second round? Like, I don't actually know because like that's the nature of a soft reset. And I want to be I want to go a little softer on them with this because I don't think they necessarily were like shopping Bane. From the way that it was described by the Orlando Magic president is like he was made like pseudo available, and then Orlando was like, we got to jump on him. Let's give a Godfather offer, and they did to get him. Yeah. So I don't know that Memphis was necessarily, they don't have like an elaborate plan that was planned around like, this is what we're going to do when we have this increased flexibility from moving off of Bane's contract. I think it was more like opportunistic, and they jumped on the opportunity to do that and accumulate some assets and be able to kind of reassess after this season kind of thing.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see their season and how they do. For sure.
Yeah. All right. We got so let's see. We were on the Grizzlies, so we're going to move back down to Will's favorite team, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Damn it.
All right. So the Thunder had a relatively quiet offseason, but they made some really important moves. They extended SGA to a 4-year, $272 million Supermax contract. That is a 3+1 with a player option on the last year that's added to his current deal. He is the only player on that roster with a player option. They extended Jalen Williams 5 years, $239 million. It's going to kick in next year. And this deal is going to be the 25% rookie scale maximum deal with some limited escalators. And we may, I'll get into that when I get to my analysis. And then they extended Chet Holmgren as well, 5 years, $239 million. Same thing, 25% rookie scale maximum, no escalators, which means it's going to be the 25% of the salary cap, regardless of any All-NBA teams he makes. They also extended Big Jalen Williams, 3 years, $24 million, so around the Zeke annual value, except it's a 3-year deal instead of a 4-year deal, and it's a 2+1 with a team option on that third year, which is like, that would have been useful, huh? They also extended AJ Mitchell 3 years, $9 million. That's a 2+1 with a team option on the last year as well. And they drafted Thomas Sorber. I gave them an A, and like just a solid A. They didn't necessarily get better by adding players. They're relying heavily on internal development, but we're talking about players that are high lottery picks or guys that have already shown a lot. In the case of Jalen Williams, who's made an All-NBA team this year, that they're relying on their internal development to get better, but they also didn't lose anybody. So this, I likened this summer more to the Boston Celtics last summer, where they just retained everybody from the championship team, more so than Denver's post-championship summer, where they lost, some bench players, and have to figure out how to backfill that. The OKC didn't have anybody that walked after their championship. And I said I would come back to Jalen Williams' extension. I think it's a really big deal that his agent got limited escalators in his contract, which basically means for players like, for example, Tyrese Halliburton, it was a big deal for him to make All-NBA because it meant that he triggered a 30% maximum contract, maximum extension, like add-on basically to his rookie scale extension if he made All-NBA in that last year of his rookie scale deal. And then his next contract would be the 30%. That's basically equivalent to the veteran maximum. J-Dub made All-NBA in this last year, but he has to make it in his fourth year or later in order for it to count, basically, which is kind of annoying. But even then, the escalators in his contract aren't like Halliburton's, where it's automatically 30%, the 30% max if you make All-NBA again, even if it's third team. For his, it's 26% if you make third team, 27% if you make second team All-NBA, and 30% only if you make first team All-NBA, which I think is crazy. Like when I saw this in his contract details on Spot Track, I was just like, he didn't need an agent to negotiate this deal. Because this is a guy who was just the second best player on a championship team, who had just made All-NBA, doesn't even get a player option on this 5-year contract extension as a very young player. And when you're a good player, you want to get back to free agency sooner, because that puts more pressure on the team to keep extending you to maximum deals, because other teams you're going to be sought after, right? And like I said, he doesn't even get the strong escalator language in his contract like Tyrese Halliburton did, that guarantees him the 30% regardless of any All-NBA team that he could and like has a really good chance of making this year. There was no downside whatsoever to getting that language from Jalen Williams' side. So I was just like, okay, this was just favors given to the Oklahoma City Thunder organization, just like every other contract on this roster. And it's so annoying. But that's why, like, when you're Sam Presti and you're able to secure all of these very team-friendly deals, like I said, SGA is the only guy with a player option. Everyone else has team options. They're all on very tradable contracts in terms of the numbers and the years, and in terms of the guarantees with the player options there. So I gave them an A, and this would have been an A+ if they had added anybody, but they didn't need to, and so they didn't. But when I say they didn't need to, let me walk that back a little bit, because they are going to be probably experiencing some form of championship hangover, just like every freaking team over the last 7 years has won the chip. And even going back to the Warriors were able to repeat in 2018, but they still had championship hangover that year. They got taken to the brink by that Houston Rockets team in the Western Conference Finals that year as well. It's not going to be as easy that second time around. And that was a generational, like not even generational team. That's probably those KD Warriors were probably the best team of all time, just in terms of raw, like can't beat them, right? And they still struggled. So because OKC didn't add anybody, I couldn't give them an A+, but otherwise it's like, I mean, they did everything else they were supposed to do.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I had an A, and then now that you've explained Jalen Williams' escalators in his deal, I'm going to give them an A+. Like, being able to rob your own players is kind of insane, and that's something Sam Presti has been able to pull off consistently. Another masterclass in the way he structured Jalen Williams' contract, just the antithesis of what Calvin Booth was doing with Zeke Naji's contract. I also love the Thomas Sorber pick.
Or what Tim Conley was doing with our dudes.
Yeah, like MPJ's contract. Yeah. I think they have their Isaiah Hartenstein replacement with Thomas Sorber. I think he's going to have time to develop into that role and be the backup big after they leave. So all of the, I was really excited about...
Respect big Jalen Williams when you're talking about that backup big.
I was really hoping on their downfall when I was seeing that their guys were getting their contracts, and I was hoping they would all make All-NBA, and then they'd have 3 players taking up like 70% of the cap, but it's not going to be that way. And I don't know. I think they're just too smart to have any faux pas like that, and they're going to be dangerous again. So I have to keep an eye out for them.
I can't believe I have to grade them. Yeah, my joke answer and like hate answer would be that everything is just so easy for them because they've already won the chip. They have an MVP. They have young star role players who make all NBA and are all stars. And it's just easy to manage a team when you have that setup.
I mean, that's what people said about Denver in 23 too.
I know. They were like, oh, all these guys are young. But then we got kind of confused, let's say, by the CBA, I would argue.
Yeah, they got really confused, actually. They confused themselves. They played themselves hard.
And so OKC can plan their team and extend these players. You know, they already were so set with the amount of picks that they had and the deals they were able to do in the CBA. They had a cheap team, obviously, while other teams were struggling to improve themselves significantly in comparison because of the fact that they were already had paid players. But yeah, so they had the new CBA reality a bit more cemented, at least, to where they could observe deals and make sure that incentives and bonuses were in contracts counting against the cap, and they could do all these things with J-Dub's contract that you just outlined. So I can't give them anything but an A, as much as I want to like be funny and give them a B or something. Like, how can you not?
They also get to add Nikola Topic, who's like,
that's true,
Josh Giddey 2.0 next year.
I know, I'm worried about that.
Holmes.
Yeah.
Did you see that Topic didn't make the Serbian national team for the final cut for Eurobasket, which I think might be a mistake, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that just came out like an hour or so before the show.
Yeah. I mean, Serbia is a good team, and I feel like they like a lot of the like veteran players there. So I don't know if it's just
any
he's
guard
young.
Creation, like reliable guard creation.
Don't disrespect Vasa.
I'm gonna disrespect Vasa.
Yeah, that's fair. All right.
All right. So got OKC. We are moving on to Will's second favorite team.
Boy.
The Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the Warriors.
No. I should have saved that one for your actual favorite. Okay, so the Los Angeles Lakers extended Luka Doncic 3 years, $149 million. That's the 2+1 with a player option. And we explained on a previous show that the reason for that structure, he could have gone with a longer deal, but the point is to get him to that 10 years of service mark so that he can get back to Supermax eligibility after Dallas screwed him in that regard. They also signed DeAndre Ayton that on a 2 for $16 million deal. That's a 1+1 with a player option, taking advantage of the Blazers need to get rid of Ayton. They lost Dorian Finney-Smith to the Houston Rockets for nothing, which was kind of like a weird situation, and maybe Chicken will want to elaborate on that. They signed Jake LaRavia to a 2 for $12 million deal, 2 years, $12 million deal. And they signed Marcus Smart to a 2-year, $10.5 million deal. They had to waive Jordan Goodwin to make this work, so they lose him. But they retained Jackson Hayes on a vet minimum to fill that backup center spot. Chicken, what say ye?
I'm giving them a C. They are the Lakers, so they do get to stumble into talent like DeAndre Ayton when they need a center. They can nab a guy like Marcus Smart out of the blue, even though he probably isn't worth the contract he was previously on. Now he's on a pretty cheap deal that he's probably going to live up to. And Luka Doncic fell in their lap and signed an extension. Like, those are some really good things, but they also did mess up the Dorian Finney-Smith situation. I think he's the prototypical guy you'd need around LeBron, the floor spacer that can be a pretty good defender when he wants to be. And now you've lost that and replaced him with Jake LaRavia, who is young, but I don't think is really what this team needs. And so now you've got this weird situation with LeBron all offseason hinting at not wanting to be there. That drama will be brought into the regular season, and a roster that's just still not, I think, at the place where it would be a solid contender. Of course, you have the great high-end talent with Luka and LeBron, but at the end of the day, you need depth. You need real bigs, apparently, since everyone has 2 to 3 now. And you're counting on Ayton, a guy who can't seem to buy in and be a serious basketball player on even a team that went to the finals in the Suns. And so now that he's not having to be evaluated on a max contract, I guess we'll see if he's worth the deal he was given. But I guess all that to say, I think they're going to be about the same level of talent. And since the talent around them has risen, they'll probably just be right around the play-in 6-7 seed, if I had to guess.
Will, what about you?
Man, this is a weird one because you get the Luka extension, which
is huge. That's just like he extended. Mm-hmm. He could have just not and extended next summer, but like this took pressure off of that front office. They got done the thing that they needed to get done, for sure.
So gone is the speculation of if he will sign. What's Luka thinking? What do the Lakers have to do to make sure he stays? It seems like they've already accomplished that. Ayton signing is interesting. I don't know how he's going to be, but obviously he's much cheaper than he used to be as the first round pick after the buyout. So, see how he does. He's better than Jackson Hayes, I would imagine. So that's at least good because they desperately needed a big. People were kind of freaking out when they got LaRavia. We'll see how he does. I don't know about Marcus Smart. I'm skeptical of how he is these days, but they just need him to play defense because they don't have much perimeter defense. We'll see if he can still do that. So just a lot of questions. So it's like losing Dorian Finney-Smith is a negative to their offseason, but you have the Luka thing kind of overshadowing it. But I agree with Chicken. I don't think they're going to be that good. I think they're going to be middle of the road. And I think LeBron's still probably upset with the front office. And I don't know how he's going to be as a player. There were times last season where I was like, man, LeBron looks cook. Like he looks like he can't jump or run. And then all of a sudden he was playing at an all NBA level the next game. And it's just so weird. And maybe at this age, that's how he's going to be, where some nights he's going to be amazing and others he's going to look terrible, or maybe he's just taking that night off. I don't even know what he's doing with the fact that he's 40 years old. And I don't know if he's going to demand a trade. Who knows what's going to happen? Probably not. And I'm still waiting to see if he's going to announce like a retirement tour this season, or if he's going to announce it the following season. So there's still a lot of questions in Lakerland, but I don't think they've sufficiently built around Luka enough to solidify them as like a very solid title contending team. So because they're kind of in the middle of the road, I'll give them a C and then upgrade it to C plus because they did the Luka extension.
So I actually think that you guys are being a little too harsh on the Lakers here. And it's crazy because I really wanted to give them like a C or a D. But when I sat down and looked at how everything went, I agree with you, Chicken. Like they just get to luck into everything. They lost out on Brooke Lopez at the beginning of this free agency drama because of the stuff going on with LeBron and like when Rich Paul first came out with that statement that made it sound like, well, we don't know if LeBron's even going to be here next year because he might request a trade or whatever, asked to be bought out, whatever, right? And then DeAndre Ayton falls into their laps, right? But that was with that news came like the day before free agency that he was going to be bought out by the Portland Trailblazers. Portland could have easily kept him on their roster because they're paying him anyway, right? But they wanted him out of that locker room so badly that they are giving him over $20 million this year just to stay away. And that's double-edged because it's like, well, now they have to deal with Ayton and everything that comes with that in a locker room full of guys that are kind of like pouty and moody themselves in both Luka and LeBron, right? So who knows how that's going to be, but just in terms of clear on-court fit and need, they got a starting caliber center who can be a lob threat, although he doesn't always roll hard, but is a pick and pop threat. He was a really good mid-range shooter last year, has been a good mid-range shooter before, but he probably should be rolling harder more often. But they're going to start a caliber center that is one of the better rebounders in the league, even though he's inconsistent at that, for $8 million. Like in a Western Conference where bigs are generally being overpaid, especially starting caliber bigs, but even backup ones. Like DeAndre Ayton's making the same amount of money as Brooke Lopez this year, which is insane because Brooke Lopez is, I believe, 37 years old. Okay. What I didn't like is I do think they were pretty limited in what they did. I think that they probably should have been willing to move off of the remaining first round picks because for some reason they have first round picks remaining after trading for Luka Doncic. Thank you, Nico Harrison. To upgrade one of their forward spots and get a real starting caliber difference maker at one of those positions. But if you are going to be a kind of cheap around the edges team, adding Jake LaRavia for $6 million a year and adding Marcus Smart for, almost nothing is useful. And who knows what kind of shape Marcus is going to be in. Like, it's a really big question mark whether it's really just like, is he going to be able to like be on the floor? Because if he's on the floor, he'll be able to at least live up to that contract, even if he looks a little bit washed. I think he's good enough to do that. But it's more, is he going to be healthy enough to play? What I didn't like was using the biannual exception to sign Marcus Smart, which triggered the first apron hard cap. I would not hard cap myself at the first apron to sign 2025 Marcus Smart. But they did that.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, was that supposed to be the really like all-in? That was supposed to be the all-in, like, aggressive move. Like, we'll hard cap ourselves, but we're going to get Marcus Smart.
Right. If you're going to hard cap yourselves, like, improve. Right. Like, really improve. They didn't do that. Like, make a meaningful move at a key position. But like again, like Marcus could be an upside play. I just wouldn't have done that, especially given his injury history the last few years. But again, like LaRavia is another playable dude. And like, this is the thing is Luka extending when he did not have to. Like, it was not in his best interest to extend this summer. He could have extended next year and gotten he didn't need more years again, because the whole point of this extension is just to get to that 10 years of service mark. But he could have put pressure on the organization. Now, to be fair, it seems like he was really involved in a lot of their behind the scenes recruiting efforts for both Ayton and Marcus Smart, especially this summer. And so those were sort of shows of good faith from the team's part. And maybe that's why they were willing to use the biannual exception, hard cap themselves to add Marcus Smart. I still wouldn't have done it. I would have been like, dude, come here, rehab your value. We'll give you a player option. He has a player option anyway. I'm like, if you're going to do that, at least don't give him a player option, because then at least he'll be tradable at the deadline, if whatever, as just an expiring. But no, what's kind of, he might turn out to be, and this isn't a serious insult to Marcus Smart, but he could be a Dario Saric situation on literally like almost the exact same amount of money plus the player option. And if he's not playable at the deadline, he's not an expiring, and then Lakers can't move off of him. Then you gave him that more money than I would have been willing to. It should have been a minimum, plus the player option. And it's like, did we choose one? No? Okay. Yeah, so that's really, it's tough because they can't get an A because they didn't actually improve, but they did the most important thing, which was extending Luka Doncic. And so I had to give them a B+, but you know what? I'm going to bring this down to a B. I'm going to bring it down to a B because I think you guys have some good criticisms. They didn't meaningfully improve. They didn't make any positional upgrades. They just kind of added playable dudes and guys that they're hoping will be playable. And I don't want to fall into the trap of like, oh, the Lakers had a pretty good offseason. Like, I don't think they're a contender, even though I had them at a B+. I just thought their offseason was like pretty good given the hand they were dealt. Although I think that they leave meat on the bone, and they've done that for a few off seasons in a row now. And so I think I have to dock them for that.
Yeah. Well, I also think it's funny. We're on year 8 of saying Aiden needs to roll hard to the rim.
I know. I don't think he's going to. It was just like, that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, based on criteria of grading where you're using their goals and like what they had available and their options, and Luka's a big component of this. I get that it's tough, but also it's like the Lakers are always trying to contend for titles, and especially with LeBron being 40.
Are they?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is like supposedly that's their franchise motto. LeBron, that's been his motto, but obviously people have questioned that with him going to the Lakers. Does that mean his ability to prioritize winning was changed going to the Lakers because it offered him all these other opportunities? But they just, like, once they got Luka, it seemed like they were shifting. You know, they're shifting the franchise. They're going to have to build around Luka now, not LeBron, which makes sense because he's old. But at the same time, LeBron's still there, so the identity hasn't been completely shifted yet. So it's kind of like this weird gap year again. I don't know. It's strange. Like, I almost could give them like a lower grade just because they didn't prioritize enough trying to really build a meaningful contender with LeBron. But at the same time, because of the Luka trade, it's kind of hard to do that so quickly. Like, trade for Luka and build this amazing team that works perfectly with LeBron and Luka.
It's not because Nico Harrison let them keep Austin Reeves and a first round pick for some reason. It's really not. It's not.
I guess that's true. They could have probably done more. All right.
Let's move on to the Phoenix Suns. So the Phoenix Suns traded Kevin Durant for Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks. They waived Bradley Beal, and now they have 20 or so odd billion of his money on their books for the next 5 years. They also waived Cody Martin. Like, I didn't see that had been done. And I'm like, does that mess with the Bradley Beal waiver amount at all? Why did they waive Cody Martin? It's all luxury tax implications, probably. They extended Devin Booker for 2 years, $133 million. That's a 1+1 with a player option. They traded for Mark Williams, traded a first-round pick to the Hornets for Mark Williams, and they drafted Common Malwalk. Will, I believe this is yours. Is that right? Yeah.
Sure. oh my God, this is weird too, because this is one of those things where the Suns aren't really going all in to be a title contender anymore. Obviously, they had to move KD. The writing was on the wall. They said they were going to. They tried at the trade deadline and failed. They didn't get as much for KD as you might think. So that sucks already off the bat. Getting off of Beal, but that's an insane buyout. That number is crazy. It's going to be on the books for a while, which I don't like.
They didn't get off of Beal. They have all his money on their books for the next however long.
He's not on the roster, which was the goal, I guess. The Booker extension is good for them, I guess. Booker didn't want to try to force his way out. Whatever. It's kind of weird. Let's just get to it and just give them the F that they probably deserve, because I just don't even know what they're really doing. Like, it's not even a good tank job to me. Like, it's just not a smart tank. Like, I feel like they almost think they're trying to still be competitive when they probably shouldn't be trying to do that. Like, I think they think Jalen Green's going to be amazing with Booker, and I just don't really see that.
Yeah, Chicken, why don't you?
Yeah, I'm not too far off. I think I'm going to go with a D+. I think it is weird that they finally figured out their center situation with Mark Williams and Malawach in the draft, but it's also weird that they did that trade right before the 10th pick that they got in the KD trade, and then took a center anyway. So I thought that was really strange. They've got an interesting collection of talent. Obviously, losing KD, like Will said, it's going to be a knock on your expected wins for next season. So I think I gave them a D+. Did I already say that? Okay. Yeah. So that's about all I got to say.
Yeah, I had an F. It's like bad return for KD, because they soured things so badly by trying to trade him at the deadline and all this stuff. Like, then they end up, like waiving Beal anyway. They never really got an opportunity to just build the team around KD and Booker. Like, that first summer after they traded for KD, I thought that that's when they were going to do it, because they had traded for KD mid-season. But then they traded for Beal, and it's like, we're adding, oh my God, we're adding Keita Bates-Diop, and who were the other minimums that people got really excited about that summer? Eric Gordon, and Yuta Watanabe, and that's going to be our depth. And it was like, all right, people. And then from there, it was just a total mess. They traded Ayton for Nurkic and all this stuff, which actually wasn't that bad the first year, because Nurkic was actually pretty good for them that first year. Then this year, it was just becoming untenable. F for me as well.
How much do you think Matt Ishbia is like involved on the day-to-day? Because it seems like all of their terrible moves are just something he would do, it feels like. Especially that Beal trade. I thought everyone would have learned.
They traded Kamara in the Ayton deal too.
Yeah. The one time they had a really solid draft pick, a depth draft pick, and they threw him away in the trade. But I felt like teams would have learned from the Lakers when they traded for Westbrook and they ruined what they had in a championship contender. And then they had something close to a championship contender when they initially got KD, and then they bring in all that extra salary with Beal and ruined everything. And now they're going to pay the price for the next 4 to 5 seasons with waiving him. So
it's so crazy to think about. That's just, I don't understand the like long-term vision because of that. And also, like, we had a comment from Vyacheslav that doesn't necessarily understand a lot of the timeline fits with Booker with what else they have going on. And I just don't really understand that either. But am I being too harsh in the way that this was almost like a rip the Band-Aid off thing, where they were just like, we got KD out and we got Beal out?
Again, they got like no assets back. Besides, depending on how you feel about Jalen Green, but even then, like, his contract is not an asset type contract, even if you see he has upside, because it's so short that if he does outplay his contract, he's going to be up for a deal in like a year. So it's not like an effective soft reset either. It's just kind of they're hoping that Jalen Green is like amazing, but also not too amazing, so that they can re-sign him on a realistic, like a good number, and also that Common Malawak becomes a starting caliber center, because oh my gosh, Mark Williams is their starting center next year, and I think that's going to be a complete disaster. Like,
I want to make an amendment to my grade because I forgot that they included that top 5 protected 2029 first in that trade for Mark Williams. Like,
that's right. It was this year's pick and the 2029.
Right.
Are you amending to F?
I'm amending it to an F. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
Chicken. Wait, one question about the Suns for Chicken that I have. Do you see Booker like asking out or them mutually agreeing to like move on from each other at some point?
I don't think so. I think Booker would have. I don't think Booker would have re-signed this summer if he was gonna really try to, push the edge and try to leave like within the next 2 seasons. There's still a possibility they're like a 15-win team at the end of the All-Star break or something, and that all changes. But he seemed content to be there. I don't know why, but I mean, he's got the loyalty for it. I guess he's going to stick and stay for now.
All right, let's move on to the Los Angeles Clippers. They extended James Harden for a 2-year, $81 million deal. That's a 1+1 with a player option. So that's like slightly not slightly sub, but sub max contract for a guy that's delivering you max value in the regular season for sure. Traded Norm Powell for John Collins, effectively as part of that 3-team deal with the Heat. Signed Bradley Beal to a 2-year, $11 million contract, which is just under the taxpayer MLE. That is a 1+1 with a player option. So they're giving out a couple more player options than I thought they would this season, given how the Clippers had been operating previously between Harden and Beal. They signed Brook Lopez for a 2-year, $18 million deal. That's a 1+1 with a team option. They signed Chris Paul to a vet minimum and drafted Yannick Conan Niederhauser, and they also let Amir Coffey walk in free agency. So my analysis on this one is that I gave them an A+, honestly. I gave them an A+, but it's not like 100. I gave them like a 97 because they didn't have like a big splash move like a KD, for example, that like immediately like rockets them up in terms of like the tier that they're in. But I think given the tools at their disposal, the Clippers did about as much as any team could do without a singular splashy move. They're probably the deepest team in the league, even though they are the oldest team in the league. And my only knock is that their current construction disfavors playing their most athletic perimeter players, which could become a regular season issue, depending on how Ty Lue manages that. That's Chris Dunn and Derek Jones Jr., just because they have all these like older like front court players now. And their backcourt also is like kind of crowded between Harden, Beal, and Chris Paul. At those positions. So I just think those guys are going to play less this year. And I think they were pretty important to their regular season success last season. So now it messes with their old formula, but they have new formula options, right? My only real like question with this team, beyond not having like the star, although the star was not like available to them this season, this offseason anyway, is like, again, based on what they were able to do the Clippers have enough two-way players that can be like real impacts in a playoff series now? Because I don't think they did last year. I think they probably have more this year, especially with the Brook Lopez addition. But I have questions about John Collins. I have serious questions about Bradley Beal, for example, questions about Chris Paul and his health, especially come playoff time. Like that's just like a consistent thing, right? But other than that, I'm like, I like everything that they did in terms of like, we're going to blow out our depth as much as possible around these two guys and kind of see how far we can get with that, without nuking any aspect of our, medium or long-term flexibility.
Yeah, I actually agree. I had an A for them as well. It's just a bunch of really solid business. They didn't give out any extremely bad contracts. They were able to flip Norman Powell for essentially John Collins and Beal. Obviously, Beal not having a no trade clause is a first for this decade, I think. They're going to be able to deploy so many lineups. Like they could go super small, they could go really big. John Collins, I'm really interested to see what he looks like in a competitive environment again. I think the last time he was on a team this good, it was when the Hawks made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, and he was a lot younger in his career, but he was showing some flashes then. So I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to stretch the floor more consistently or up his game on defense. But overall, I think the Clippers are going to be scary yet again. I think they can almost be locked in for a top 4 seed. I mean, they were 5th last year, but I think they could jump the Lakers and be a top 4 seed again next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're going to jump the Lakers for sure. I'm going to give them an A. Yeah, I think people should be high on the Clippers. Their offseason was good. This might be like the time where if you are high in the Clippers, you probably are more solid in that opinion than the past times where people were picking the Clippers to win the championship with like the PG Kawhi iteration of that team, and they failed every time. And I know the Clippers curse thing was discussed on our last show with Law Murray. If you're listening now or watching this replay, make sure to check that out because that was a good conversation about the Clippers and the Nuggets. Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you guys said. The only reason I'm not giving a plus is because, I mean, I still like Norman Powell, and I get that it's Beal and Collins replacing him, but he was pretty good for them.
Norm was better than Beal last year at that role because like Beal had the same role that Norm did, but was substantially worse at it.
I mean, people were talking about Norm as, I don't remember what award they had him as, if it was like most improved or whatever. People were high on Norm and were excited about him, and he was having this amazing season, and he was, you know, a shooting threat that I was worried about coming into that series, and I was worried how he was going to do, if he was going to destroy us, like the way that CJ McCollum used to just, you know, go off and eliminate us from the playoffs. I was like, that's like what Norm could do on this Clippers team, and I just don't really know how Collins and Beal's going to look, but they're not risky moves. Like none of these are, you know, going to sink you if they're not the most ideal version of what you see them coming in as, especially with what else they're doing. Like CP3, Lopez, Beal, Collins is all like good, solid moves. And if they're not that good, it's like whatever. Like they're probably going to be able to do enough to fulfill mostly what you see them doing. So it's a good offseason for them, and they're going to be a solid team. Unfortunately, another solid team in the West.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to, this was Chicken's team, right? So I'm going to prioritize teams that are projected to make the playoffs next year so that we can get through at least the real like contenders. And then we'll see if we have time for some of the like play in and potential lottery projected teams at the end. Let's see. So, the Clippers were my team. So, Chicken, Houston Rockets. They traded Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks for KD. They extended Jabari Smith Jr. to a 5-year, $122 million deal. That's about 12 to 13% of the cap. They have not extended Tari Eason, which I had a note about. They extended Steven Adams to a 3-year, $39 million deal, which is just under the mid-level exception for this year. Extended Fred VanVleet to a 2-year, $50 million deal. That's a 1+1 with a player option. I believe Fred is currently the only player on the roster with a player option. They signed Dorian Finney-Smith to a 3+1 with a player option. I believe it's around $8 million a deal. I need to double check that. Actually, so that would be 2 guys with player options, just said. And they signed Clint Capella to a 3-year, $21 million deal with a player option. They also signed Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday, Jayshawn Tate, and Josh Okogie on vet minimums, but let Jock Landale walk in free agency. And they traded Cam Whitmore for the Washington Wizards 2026 and 2029 second round picks. Chicken, what say you?
Yeah, this is an easy A+ for me. We're looking at a team that was already really dangerous in the playoffs. I really liked the effort they put up as a young team against the Warriors in the playoffs last year. And then you get to add Kevin Durant. You take away Jalen Green, who was pretty inconsistent in the playoffs. You lose Dylan Brooks, but you have so many other defensive perimeter, two-way guys that you don't really miss him, I don't think, too much. And you add Dorian Finney-Smith, you add Clint Capella for whatever reason. You already have two really good centers, and now you could play two center lineups the whole game if you wanted to, depending on the matchup. I think they have so much flexibility in their lineups, their skill sets, just with all the talent on the roster. And one of the key issues they had was scoring in the playoffs. We saw how often they were really inconsistent and really inefficient in the half court. And now you add Kevin Durant, who can be that release valve for those really tough possessions. And you just give him the ball with 8 seconds left in the shot clock, and he can make something happen. So there are not as many holes as they had last year. The internal development's going to continue to improve. So I think it's going to be really scary out west. You got the Rockets, the Clippers, all these teams that are just getting better. And I think they can be right up there at that 1-2 seed again next season.
Yeah, I mean, they got Kevin Durant and for Jalen Green. Like I said, this was a contract that made no sense when it was signed because it was too long to trade in the immediate, at least like at the point that it was signed, say around mid-season. But obviously the Rockets were able to move off of it that summer, but also too short to capitalize on upside had Jalen Green shown his upside on a more consistent basis. And they were able to bring themselves into that actual contender tier because even though they were good last year, I don't think anyone really had them as a top tier contender. I don't know that I have them in the upper tier, but they're probably the top of the tier right under where I would have like OKC and the Nuggets because I don't see Kevin Durant as enough to fix their offense to the point to fix their offense enough to be a championship caliber offense because I don't really see him as a primary creator, and I think they're still pretty reliant on Fred VanVleet to make them work. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see how things end up gelling, and maybe Şengün takes a leap. And when you've got like, say, a better, more efficient Şengün playing, and then Kevin Durant playing off of him, like that could actually be dangerous. Like that's something I would be afraid of for sure. But yeah, easy A+ for me. I gave them a 99, and the only reason it's not 100 is because I want to see what the Tari Eason extension is going to be.
Yeah, maybe besides the Nuggets.
Got Jae'Sean Tate to take a minimum, which made no sense because he's never going to play. Never going to play. No playing time guaranteed. But this relatively young guy, how old is he? Like 29, is going to take a vet minimum deal to never play.
I know he could have gone somewhere else. Come on, bro. Yeah, I'm going to give them an A+. Probably one of the easier, if not the easiest team to grade. For the audio listeners, we have all the moves listed out on our visual show format, and I didn't have enough room to even add everything that they did.
They were busy, and they were all good. Everything was great.
I agree with the points that you guys made, and I love the point you have, Grace, about whether KD can really take the offense to the next level alone. And Fred VanVleet, I agree, they're probably going to depend on him a lot in terms of the on-court play, but his contract's way less than it used to be. 2-year, $50 million deal, the 1+1. So while you may not be depending on him financially as much, the basketball fit's still there. And I definitely have questions about him. And I thought he would probably not be on the Rockets after this past season. So I'm surprised he's still there. But Fred VanVleet, yeah.
But they need him. They need him to be good. If they don't have a replacement, it doesn't make sense to. And that's the thing. I thought Fred probably had more leverage in those negotiations than his agent exerted to get a $25 billion a year deal. I'm not saying he should have been making 40, but the Rockets didn't have a good replacement for Fred. And it's kind of similar to the situation the Wolves are in with Mike Conley. But Fred is obviously younger than Mike Conley. It's just like, we're pretty dependent on you to like make this really disparate set of like two-way wings that are really more defensive, like, or at least not offensively oriented wings outside of Kevin Durant work. And so they need him to be good, but yeah, like regular season, they just needed him on the floor. Like they went on their losing streak in the middle of the season after they were up at the 2 seed, and then they immediately went on like a crazy losing streak for like a month after that because he got injured.
Yeah. It's such an important role.
When he was good. It was like, oh, they're just like winning these minutes against the Warriors. It's kind of crazy.
He played better in the playoffs than I thought he would. I just kind of was thinking he was a bit of a problem just defensively, and like I just thought he wasn't playing super well, and I didn't think they'd want to depend on him like you were describing. And yeah, I guess it's hard to replace that role. It's a very important role. The Rockets have a slew of really good moves that we just laid out, and if they had replaced Fred with a better point guard, probably would have been more expensive, but you have a more solid option. I don't know. I just thought they were going to pivot from him, but whatever. Like, let's see how he does.
But they were able to not pivot from him and reduce his contract substantially, which is just like a fleecing.
Yeah,
again,
for sure.
Like, Raphael Stone is on a bit of a heater, I would say.
We have a question from the chat. Will Amon play at the 2?
Yeah. Because Jabari's going to start based on that extension. It's just what's going to happen. They don't have shooting guards. So that's like they don't have shooting guards. That's the knock that you could have on this roster, is that they went so all in on their front court. It's just, again, similar to the Timberwolves. I think the roster balance is a bit off, and they probably suffer even more than the Timberwolves do in terms of their perimeter creation, because at least the Timberwolves have more, like the Rockets have the best offensively oriented front court player in Kevin Durant, but the Timberwolves have more of them, whereas the Rockets have a bunch of these defensive wings and front court players. I guess they also have Jabari, which helps, right? But they have the same problems, these two teams, in my opinion. But I do think that the Rockets having Kevin Durant and not like their center not being Rudy kind of makes the offensive puzzle in front of them a little bit easier to solve than it is for the Timberwolves. So
yeah, and I think Amon's going to functionally be a 1 most of the time, since he's not really going to be that great off ball, especially spacing the floor.
Right.
I think Fred's got enough of a combo guard skill set where he can be off ball.
Yeah, he can play
often.
off the ball for sure.
Yeah. And so I think Amon will be the 1, so to speak, but they have so much roster flexibility. Who knows? He could be a 4 or 5.
And I don't think the Rockets care about Fred's defense. Like their issue in that series against the Warriors was their offense. Like that was not it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Houston Rockets A+. Golden State Warriors. Oh, well, I gave this one to you, right?
Yay.
Your actual favorite team. They lost to Von Looney. They are currently in a cold war with Jonathan Kuminga. We are to assume, although because none of this has been done, that Gary Payton II, Al Horford, DeAnthony Melton, and now reportedly, maybe perhaps Malcolm Brogdon are holding out to be signed by Golden State. It makes sense because they haven't signed with anybody else. Like if you were trying to just like deduce what's going to happen here, because the Warriors have 9 guys signed on their roster right now. So, Will, what do you think of this offseason?
Oh, man. Yeah, it's hard. This one's hard, too, because they are easy to joke about and laugh about because they hadn't done anything. The fans are frustrated. They're wanting moves to be announced. Everything with Kuminga is messy. But if you assume that they're getting Al, Melton, and Brogdon, that's not horrible. And they're just building on what they did at the deadline with adding Jimmy. I think they're going to be still like much better than I thought they were, at the beginning of last season. for example. So it's not bad, but they haven't really done much either. I get this Kuminga thing as like kind of a slap in the face to Steph on some level. Let's give them a... I see what your grade is, Grace, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's classic Grace grade.
I mean...
Okay, I'm going to assume they're going to get Allen Brogdon, and I'm going to give them a B-.
All right, I'm giving them an I because they haven't done anything. They have done 0 things. They've done 0 things this offseason. They are the only team that has done 0 things. I don't even think they had a draft pick. Yeah, so like there's nothing to grade. Maybe this stuff happens, maybe it doesn't. We can assess like what level of team they're going to be by projecting forward the guys that are going to sign. But the Golden State Warriors organization has not done anything this offseason. So I'm giving them an I, and it's liable to turn into an F if they don't actually get this stuff done and start getting charged for not meeting minimum roster requirements.
I'm going to give them an F because they have been sitting on the sidelines this entire offseason.
That's true. They've missed out on players.
Exactly. That's what I'm really grading them on. Yeah, because there was a lot of commotion with a lot of the trades, especially kicking off with the Bane deal. All of these different possibilities came up along the way, and the Warriors have just been sitting on their hands the entire time. I don't really think that's great messaging to Steph. I thought this was going to be one of those off seasons where they were going to really load up early, have this all figured out well before training camp. And it just seems like they're content with just letting things fall to them at this point. And this Kuminga thing has really strung out. It's been strung out for so long. I don't even remember the details.
They reportedly
don't
want to take Malik Monk and a first-round pick for a player that they don't want to pay. Like, what are we talking about here? I get Malik Monk has a lot of years left on his deal, but he's a good player and would fit in your system. And it's not like they have a lot of big contracts that they have to worry about. Like,
yeah, and you could then flip Monk for something else that's better because you already have Buddy Hield, so that'd be kind of weird to have both of them on the roster. But doing something to improve the team, and you need to replace Jonathan Kuminga in some way if you're going to let him, be signed and traded somewhere else. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how you walk into training camp as Steph Curry and be like, oh, yeah, this is going to be another great year like 2022. We're going to really compete this year. And I just don't see how that's a possibility.
Yeah, just very unserious.
Wow, you guys are
behavior.
so harsh on the Warriors. Keep doing your thing, Warriors.
Okay, well. All right. I actually did not plan this, but because I was reprioritizing the teams, I get this next one, which is our Denver Nuggets. They traded MPJ and their 2032 first round pick for Cam Johnson. They traded Jonas Valanciunas for Dario Saric to the Sacramento Kings. They signed Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. on vet minimums. And there are no extensions yet on Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, or Cam Johnson of the extension eligible players on this roster. They also did not extend Nikola Jokic, which I didn't have in my notes, but as I was rattling off the extension eligible players, I just realized that. So I need to bump my grade down a bit, although it doesn't change the letter. I gave them an A-. I had it as a 94, but I bumped it down to a 91 because they did not extend Nikola Jokic this offseason for obvious reasons that we've talked about before on the show. He can sign for longer next summer, or he could not sign, and then everybody is panicking, including myself, if that were to happen next summer. But this is an A-. I think the Cam Johnson for MPJ trade was a good one, but not a great one, because if you're giving up your 2032 first round pick, I think it would have been great if they could have, say, moved off of Zeke Najee's contract as well. And got a little extra salary dump in there, or gotten back another player. Like, for example, if this move had happened mid-season and we got Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith, for example, like that would have been great. But I can't say that was a like home run kind of trade. It was just like, okay, it was good. They moved off of salary. They gained some flexibility, but they did have to give out that really far off pick, and that was their only return, was moving off of salary and, gaining flexibility. But the Dario Saric trade for Jonas Valanciunas was absolutely a home run deal. I have no idea what the Sacramento Kings were thinking. I know they wanted to get under the first apron so that they could complete the Dennis Schroeder sign-and trade, but who in the world is that desperate? I guess they needed to move quickly because Dennis Schroeder was in super high demand. I don't know. And yeah, but this is an A. Like, they got Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. on vet minimums. Tim Hardaway Jr. and Bruce Brown were starters at different points throughout the last 2 seasons on teams that were good, and in Bruce's case, also teams that weren't good, especially last year. But Tim Hardaway Jr., a starter on the Detroit Pistons, played a lot of minutes. He plays a lot of games. He's a great shooter. He's going to help us space the floor, et cetera, et cetera. They addressed a lot of needs. They also didn't address some needs. In particular, one more reliable front court player, in my opinion, is missing. I think one more reliable ball handler, in my opinion, is missing. But all of those things are mitigated by the fact that you add a player in Cam Johnson who expands on the off-ball, like primarily off-ball player that can do a little bit of some other stuff, skill set compared to MPJ. So maybe I'm biased because it's my team, but I feel like this is generally like a great offseason. And again, I also am biased because it's compared to what we thought this offseason was going to be, which was the summer of internal development.
Absolutely. I mean, we didn't even have a GM at one point at the start of the offseason.
We didn't have we had an interim GM for months and didn't have an official. We still don't have a GM, actually, because we have an executive vice president of basketball operations and an executive vice president of player personnel that combine to be the Ben Wallace super GM. But they were hired and announced 2 days before the NBA draft. And none of us had any idea what was going to happen next.
Yeah. I'm going to give them an A as well. I'm not really going to be as hard on them on the MPJ trade. I do have the commemorative Funko Pop from the championship year, so I'll have to get rid of that off the shelf. I don't really care that we're losing in 2032 first when Jokic is 37. F those picks.
It's just I wanted to be able to get like one other thing thrown in there, whether it's like a useful player coming back or moving off of some bad salary, if that was going to be the asset going out. That's all.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I guess, just nitpicking there. But that opened up the door for everything after that. The Nuggets were under the first apron. They could get the full mid-level exception. They were able to bring in, being able to get off of Dario Saric. I don't think we have discussed that enough. He was horrendous for us. He didn't even play. He was a water boy all of the entire second half of the season. So being able to have a functional backup big, that's the closest thing we've had to like Boogie Cousins like 3 years ago. Like, that's how desperate we were to have someone that could fill in the non-Jokic minutes at the center position. So very happy about that. And then knocking out the minimum contracts with Bruce and Tim Hardaway. This is maybe the most talented roster of the Jokic era, I think.
Nice.
Yeah. Will, anything to add there?
Yeah, you guys said most of it. Obviously, we've talked about the Nuggets offseason relentlessly already on the show, and I think we even graded each individual move that the Nuggets did. But I'm giving them the A+. It's on the thumbnail for this episode, so someone's gonna have to do it. Yeah, I just think so. Like, you hired the coach, you hired GMs, you made all the moves that they did, which were, I think I don't think anyone's forgetting, but we were discussing this, like, it was going to be really hard to make moves, and it was even hard to envision what we were going to do. We were expecting no trades and almost no free agent signings, and we got pretty much all of those things and got off Saric, which I didn't even expect to happen. I thought him and Zeke were going to be stuck on our teams until their contracts were up. So I think the goal of the Nuggets obviously is to win championships with Jokic, and I can see it happening this year with the moves that they made. I really can. So I'm going to give them an A+ for getting us back to the position where we can win a title. So that's basically it. But I like your guys' points. And yeah. I think you could legitimately give I think when it happened, people were talking like the Nuggets had the best offseason, and the only other team that had just as good, if not better, were the Rockets. So it's like, I get that, but I think A- might be a little low still, Grace.
I don't.
I think because you are so familiar with the Nuggets and like every detail, like it explains why I think you would give them like an A- and give them these notes, because like I also agree, if we got off Zeke, that'd be like a home run. Like, you can't not give them an A+ if they did all this.
Right.
Plus
I think like an A+ is tough because it's like there's other stuff that still needs to be done. So
yeah, but it would.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I forgive them for that because they got a lot of it done. There's just couple more pieces left. Also, like the last roster spot, and I still don't necessarily love that like Hunter Tyson's on the team and all that, but
that too. Yeah.
And the extensions for CB and PWA haven't happened yet, and I imagine they still will. I wonder how that would change the grades. Like, imagine they give them these contracts you've been talking about, and like even implement some of the ideas that you laid out. You might even give them a higher grade too.
Yeah, very possible. Okay, so we've got quite a few teams left. So what I'm going to do is give my grades for the remaining teams, and I'm going to let NBA Chicken have his choice at which one he wants to elaborate on. And then I'm going to give like a short rant about the Dallas Mavericks, which might also be the team you pick. But so my grade for the Dallas Mavericks is IDK. My grade for the Portland Trail Blazers is a C. For the where am I? The Sacramento Kings, I gave an F. The San Antonio Spurs, I gave a C. And the Utah Jazz, I gave a D+. So Chicken, I'll give you your choice as to which you want to elaborate on.
I want to rant about the Mavericks too, so
all right,
let's just go right.
All right,
into
I'll let you do yours, and then I'll do mine. That I love that pick.
Okay, I gave the Mavericks a C-. They were gifted. This is the back end deal for giving away Luka to the Lakers was getting the number 1 pick in a pretty generational draft, and then they also on the back end gave them the least amount of back-to-backs, and they're facing the most teams on back-to-backs in their schedule. So, outside of the nepotism,
help them, by the way, if I'm being honest,
they really haven't done too much outside of bringing in D'Angelo Russell, and I don't know how many times we're going to do this song and dance with him. He's going to have to be their starting point guard because Kyrie's probably going to be out all year. The Gafford re-signing and the Irving extensions. I would love to hear your thoughts on those, Grace, actually.
Yeah, what grade did you give
so
them,
the
Grace?
Dallas Mavericks,
really quick?
I said IDK.
Oh.
So that's my grade. They drafted Cooper Flag. They signed D'Angelo Russell for a 2-year, $11.5 million deal. They extended Kyrie Irving to a 3-year, $117 million deal. That was a 2+1. They retained Dante Exum, and they lost Spencer Dinwiddie. This is all after trading Luka for Anthony Davis. And my rant is, how am I supposed to evaluate this Mavs offseason when mid-season they traded their 25-year-old franchise star for a 32-year-old with an injury history, and then their other older star tore his ACL, and then they won the draft lottery to get Cooper Flagg? Like, genuinely, I have no idea what the goals or benchmarks are supposed to be for this team this summer. And I somehow feel like they didn't meet them either way. Because they still have PJ Washington on the roster. They've got way too many power forwards. They have not created room at that position group for Cooper Flagg. And Cooper Flagg is going to be there. And I'm sure he's going to get enough minutes. But I feel like if he's getting enough minutes, somebody isn't getting enough minutes. And that causes problems, especially for someone like PJ Washington, who is in a contract year right now. They have neither extended him nor traded him. So I'm just very confused as to what they're doing. I don't think that they're a contender, and I also don't think that they have optimized their build around Cooper Flagg. So I want to give them an F, but I also don't want to punish them for not really knowing what the hell they're supposed to do after they did the most WTF move in sports history.
Yeah, my last note was that they're also over the second apron right now. So that's why they got the C-.
Are they over the second? Are they actually?
Yes. It's currently constructed.
Like total F. That's an F. Like, what? I had no idea they were over the second apron.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's crazy.
I was going to give them a D+ because they drafted Cooper Flagg, but you got lucky for that. That's an easy thing to do. So how much credit?
Yeah, because of Dante Exum, they're literally over the second. That's crazy. I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, so that's it. You want to give them an F, Grace, now that you see they're over the second?
Yes, I do.
F for...
And also F Nico Harrison. Like, actually.
F for F Nico. That's what the chant. Fire Nico and F Nico. Yes. Lots of Fs.
Fire. That's what I mean. Fire Nico.
F for fire. God. No, you guys said it all about them. Let's get another crappy team in here.
Let's talk about the Chicago Bulls of the West.
The show's at 2. I have an hour.
Okay, I'll give you. You do? Wait.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I thought you had to leave in 5 minutes.
I thought it was at 1.
I'm pretty sure it's at 2.
Oh my gosh, I was speeding us through these playoff teams because I thought you had 5 minutes left. I have my time zones all mixed up. All right, we've got plenty of time then. Let's actually speed run through these crappy teams.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not take the whole hour, but
no, sure.
Yeah.
All right then, you guys. I already spoiled my grades for these teams, but the next one that we have is the Portland Trailblazers, who I gave a C. I'll just list off the moves, and I believe it's supposed to be Will's turn. So they traded Anthony Simons for Drew Holiday, straight up from the Boston Celtics. So traded an expiring for a longer term deal, but they got Drew as a vet. They signed Damian Lillard to a 3-year, $41 million deal, which is a 2+1. Damian's not going to be playing this next season because he's going to be rehabbing from his Achilles tear. They bought out DeAndre Ayton. They bought out $22 million of his $30 million contract, and the Lakers are effectively paying him the rest in his contract this year. And then they signed Blake Wesley to a minimum deal after he got waived, I believe, by the Spurs. And they also drafted Hanson Yang. So, Will, what do you think of this offseason?
God, this is a middle of the road kind of a grade where they go after Drew, which was such a weird thing because they already got him and traded him away. I mean, what is so wrong with Anthony Simons that they didn't want to keep him? He's like, fine. They get Dame back, but he can't play, so that's cool. He gets to come home. Good for them. That's a cool story. Get off Ayton, but that's another big buyout. I don't love that, but what were they supposed to do? And Hanson Yang, the Chinese Jokic, is very cool for them. It's going to be exciting. So, yeah, it's middle of the road. Not anything big or franchise altering. Not choosing a real clear direction. They still have players on there who have been rumored to leave, like Robert Williams and I don't know, Jeremy Grant. Why are those guys still there? It's such a weird thing.
Well, he's not going anywhere. He's got too many years left on his contract.
I know. So that's pretty brutal. I'm just going to give them a C. I don't know. Like, I don't hate it. Like, there's been some egregious, questionable moves we've been talking about with some of these teams, and I don't see the Blazers on that level. But it's just kind of a nothing. Like, I feel numb just looking at their moves. I'm just like, it's the Blazers. But I don't think they're going to be horrible. They're not going to be like this awful team that's terrible. Like, they have interesting players who I think will be fun to watch, and people will be surprised. Though I'm kind of sad Delano Banton's not on the team anymore. I was like higher on him, but he didn't turn out to be as good as I maybe thought.
I don't know. He was fine with them. Like, I think they wanted more defense or whatever. I'm really confused about this team's direction too. I think they're trying to get better, but they're still kind of living in two timelines land, and they've kind of doubled down on two timelines by drafting Hanson Yang and but also like getting Dame back and trading for Drew. It's very, they're trying to create runway for Scoot, but also not. My thing with the Blazers is like, why weren't they willing to trade Anthony Simons sooner?
That's what I can't understand either, because he had a market all this time.
Just, like, trade
Probably
him for an
better market earlier.
Like, yeah, when scoring guards had more value before this offseason, which has been talked about a lot, how little value scoring shooting guards seem to have if they're not like a max guy. And like his contract was kind of big, I guess, but like he's the kind of player that like a bad team might want to like take a flyer on if they wanted to just improve a little bit. So I'm confused by that move in the context of like Dame has been asking you to improve this team for a while now, and it seems like the unwillingness to move Anthony before now doesn't really make sense. I don't know if they needed to see more out of Anthony. Like, have they seen more out of Anthony Simons in the last 2 years than they had like 3 years ago, for example? Like, while Dame was there? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and Drew Holiday is not going to be there cheap. Like, they owe him $100 million over the next 3 years. Like, that's a big contract that you're not going to be able to move off of. And I don't even know if they got enough in that deal to be taking on that kind of salary. And to Grace's point,
they traded Anthony with a second round pick.
Yeah, didn't they? Exactly. Yeah, I think so.
Brad Stevens is a wizard. I don't know what he's doing when he's on the phone with these GMs. That Marcus Smart deal, when they got Porzingis and they got the first round picks from the Grizzlies in that deal, and the Wizards were like, yeah, sure, we'll let Boston have those, and we'll just take Tyus Jones or whatever. That was insane. Yeah, and they did, and he's done it again. So,
to quickly talk about Yang Hansen for a second, he was like consensus, maybe like around 30 on most boards. He was like around the end of the first round on my board. So for them, it didn't
matter in this draft at all. Like the back half of this draft was very like, I think you could have shuffled all those guys up and it not really made that much of a difference. And I think it's because the Nets had 5 picks that like they kind of screwed up. They were just kind of taking guys they wanted at whatever spot.
Wait, was the second round picks recalled? We got a comment.
Were the second round picks recalled?
Oh, wasn't there an issue with Drew's physical or something?
Oh, yeah. You're right. And then the Blazers did take the pick back, but the deal still goes through. I forgot about that. You're right.
So it was just a player for player swap in the end?
Yeah.
I don't even remember.
Which is still like,
That's
I think
atrocious.
Brad made out like a bandit in there.
Yeah.
Because of how much money was left on Drew's deal. And he had a really rough season last year before the playoffs. Like, it was not pretty.
Yeah.
What grade do you want to give them, Chicken?
I think I had C-. partially because of that deal and reaching on Yang a little bit.
Yeah. Ideally, this team would make at least the play-in. Like, I think that's their goal. I don't know that they're going to do it, but I think they've got a decent shot at that. So I couldn't go lower than a C. So
I probably should have given them an A just for moving Simons out of the West. So he can't just shoot threes against the Nuggets and make every single one.
True.
okay.
From a hater perspective, I'm with you on that.
All right. So the next team I got here is the Sacramento Kings. They signed Dennis Schroeder to a 3-year, $44 million deal. And I think that was their only good move. Spoiler alert. They are also reportedly trying to trade Malik Monk to make room for Russell Westbrook, but that hasn't been done yet. They traded Jonas Valanciunas for Dario Saric. That was to make room under the first apron to do the sign and trade for Dennis. They drafted Nick Clifford. They signed Drew Eubanks to a vet minimum. They brought back Doug McDermott on a vet minimum, and they lost Jake LaRavia in free agency. Who did the last one? Was that Chicken? No, that was Will. So this one's mine. Okay. Jake LaRavia was limited in how much the Kings could offer him in free agency because of the way that the Grizzlies had declined his team option going into the season that he was traded to the Kings. And so the Kings were limited to paying him up to about $5 million a year, just a little over $5 million, with a player option, which would have helped him regain his full bird rights after the first year, and then the Kings could give him more after that. LaRavia ended up signing for like $6 million a year with the Lakers. So it's not like he got a ton more money to go to Los Angeles. So did the Kings just not want him? Did they not even try to make a play for him at all? I get the Lakers could offer more plus to the Lakers, but like I feel like he was really good for Sacramento while he was there. So it's kind of weird to me that it seemed like they didn't even try to keep him. I think he signed with the Lakers very soon into free agency. I gave them an F because I didn't see anything good that they did this offseason, and hearing about the things that they are trying to do in terms of just dumping Malik Monk somewhere so that they make room for Russell Westbrook is kind of weird. I don't think that Russ is like the kind of point guard that they need. Then again, like if you need like a reasonable facsimile for like the way De'Aaron Fox plays, not a reasonable facsimile, but like a cheap facsimile, like Russ would be it. Yeah, and they didn't really do anything. And this is a team that I don't think is trying to tank, is the thing. These are moves of a team that is trying to tank, and they're not trying to tank. At least they haven't been for the last few years because they're tired of being like not in the playoffs, etc. But I feel like that's kind of where they are. And they might actually be like a good like end of the year sit everyone tanking candidate based on this roster, but it's tough with Sabonis there is the other thing. So I gave them an F because I don't think they did anything good besides signing Schroeder in any direction, and that is only good if they can make themselves competitive, which I don't think they have.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you there. I don't know why I had D+ because I don't know what good they've done. Dennis Schroeder being their main addition, who was on his 10th team, giving him as much money as they did is just insane to me. And then I also saw the report a few weeks ago that they were willing to trade Devin Carter for whatever they could, I guess, get for him.
I know. Was like
their best draft pick in like the last few years. I mean, I think even compared to Chris Murray, I think he's just right under him. But I don't understand what the point is. That was my note here. What's the point? Like, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to replicate what the Bulls were doing out east with DeMar and Zach LaVine. Like, there is no true ability for them to contend next season or in the future. And they're in that revolving door of mediocrity as well. Like, they just have no direction. And they don't have Tyrese Halliburton or De'Aaron Fox. I don't know how they did that, but yeah.
lost both of them. Oh, it's brutal. Yeah, I'm giving them a D minus because that's getting Dario. Great for them. Great move. Thank you, Kings. I feel like I just need to like reverse psychology all the GMs who are obviously watching us and just support them for these moves because really is helping me out. But yeah, why are they punishing DeMar DeRozan by placing him with Levine again? It's just so sad to me. Like, how
I
did
feel
they
like
not see
DeMar's
how that
being
went?
punished, honestly.
Yeah,
I think that DeMar and Zach are both being punished, if I'm being fair.
Yeah, and Zach. Yeah, it's just so sad to see. And
it's never-ending hell.
They got Sabonis. I don't know. I really do think they need to start trading these dudes. And it does feel like a kind of tanking.
But it's tough because their contracts are like too long.
Yeah, I know.
I get
they're big.
Zach has 2 years left on his deal.
Yeah.
It's too big. Like
the Dennis Schroeder move feels like, you know, a down on their luck, poor poverty franchise like the Hornets or something who just signed like a fringe star, like all-star, and it was like, whoa, this all-star is going to come play, so that'll drive some interest for people to come see, but it's just Dennis Schroeder, so it's like doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So it's just as rough. It's an overpay for him, but yeah.
Agreed.
Anyway, that's all I got for the Kings.
At least they took Nick Clifford, who I really liked in the draft.
Yeah, that's the thing is like I gave them an F, even though I like Nick Clifford. So maybe I could give them an F plus. I don't know. All right, Clifford. San Antonio Spurs. This one's going to be chickens. They extended De'Aaron Fox to a 4-year, $222 million deal. They drafted Dylan Harper at number 2. They signed Luke Cornett to a 4-year, $44 million deal. That is a 4+1, with the 3rd year being partially guaranteed and the 4th year being a team option. They traded for Kelly Olynyk, for Malachi Branham, and Blake Wesley. Oh, they traded him, and then I think the Wizards were the ones that waived Wesley, which I mentioned. I mentioned Wesley earlier in the pod. They also gave up a 2026 least favorable, like some like meh 2nd round pick to get Kelly Olynyk. They lost Chris Paul, and they like I said, they lost Blake Wesley in that trade and Mamu in free agency. So Chicken, what are your thoughts of the Spurs? I have a lot because I feel like I think a lot of people are misevaluating this team.
I gave them a B+. I think everything they're needing to do should be surrounding how they build around Wemby and extending Fox, giving him a pretty solid point guard. Obviously not a tier 2 guy, but fringe tier 3 point guard to work off of. And then I think they killed the draft. Obviously having the 2nd pick and getting Dylan Harper was a home run. And then Carter Bryant falling to them at 14 is disgusting. I was really, really highly rating him in the draft process, and for him to be on the wing as a 2-way player is just an
Where did you have him?
I think I had him in the top 10 on my boards, at least, because I just really liked him as a player. So seeing him fall to them was, I started to get a little scared. And then, they bolstered their front court, having Kelly Olynyk and Luke Cornett, both kind of weirder centers in terms of archetype, but they can space the floor. Kelly obviously has that playmaking ability. So I think they brought some new skill sets to the front court. And obviously I think either of them can play with Wemby. Wemby can pretty much play anywhere in the front court. So I don't know. I think they just have enough pieces in place where they can push for a playing spot. And they have the younger players, obviously the rookies I like, that can develop as the season progresses. And I don't think they have the expectations of trying to be a first round, or like a 2nd round exit or anything. So having low expectations and bringing in solid pieces, I think they are in a pretty good position for next season.
I think you're too high on them. I gave them a C. And I might be willing to fight you a little bit on this one. There was no single move that I thought was like bad, right? I think a lot of people were really critical of the De'Aaron Fox extension, but it is what it is. They traded for him mid-season from a team that absolutely would have given him that max contract had he wanted to stay there in the Sacramento Kings. And so I think that if they'd tried to get a lower number, would have been pretty insulting to a player that's as young as he is, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, he's like a one-time all-star, whatever. Like this is the going rate for a top 40 some player in the NBA. That's just like there are 30 teams. That's how this works, right? But I do think that the backcourt situation is a little bit cluttered when it comes to Fox, Castle, Vassell, and Dylan Harper, who they just drafted, right? In addition to that, I think, ironically, they're going to miss CP3 because he could kind of organize everybody. Now, I'm not saying they should have CP3 on this roster, especially with the backcourt kind of logjam there. I also think that I appreciate the marginal moves they made to improve their front court depth. I think Kornet is a really good move, especially on the contract they ended up giving him. I thought originally it was overpaid because Shams et al. Have been, going with this new trend of not saying what the deal actually is, including non-guarantees, team options, whatever, and sometimes not even saying what kind of contract it is, whether it's a training camp deal or a vet minimum. So I thought, wow, Luke Kornet, a 4-year deal, that's kind of crazy. But of course, with the partial guarantee in that year 3 and basically a non-guarantee in the team option in year 4, they have a lot of flexibility that they're going to have in the coming years. And I think that partial guarantee comes in the year when Wemby's first extension is going to kick in. So I think they were pretty smart about that. And I was one of the people that's pretty skeptical about, should the Spurs go after KD? He'll make them better, but how much better, especially for what they might have to give up. But after seeing what the Rockets gave up for KD, it was a young, interesting guard that might have some upside, which is Devin Vassell, even though he may not have as much upside as Jalen Green. And then some front court player that effectively was salary filler in that deal. Although I think Dylan Brooks could be helpful for the Suns, especially because they don't have any wings. But would the Suns have said no to Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, a good first round pick and one bad first round pick? Especially since they weren't getting draft capital offers from anyone else. And it's not like the Spurs have to use their own picks. They have a pretty sizable cache of picks in there that they could stash. So in retrospect, I feel like the Spurs not throwing their hat in the ring for KD in any serious way, which is all the reporting that came out after the KD trade to the Rockets was actually done, was kind of a missed opportunity if your goal is get to the playoffs, if that's your goal. Because I don't know that they can do that with this current roster. They might make the play-in, and I say might, but if your goal is get to the playoffs and get Wemby that experience and learn more about other players on the roster and get that information gathering that you need so that you can take your next steps, I actually think it wouldn't have been a bad idea to just jump on KD if you could have, for not that much, right? Maybe you have to spend a pick or two. But yeah, you move off of Devin Vassell, but then you get to evaluate, you kind of eliminate a little bit of the logjam in the backcourt so you can evaluate these other players and how they fit around Wemby with a player that Kevin Durant fits around anybody. I don't have fit concerns there. It's more I didn't know what level of investment they were willing to make depending on how far they wanted this team to go. But again, if your goal is make the playoffs, I think the KD move would have made sense, especially if he's not seeking a long-term extension at this point. It sounds like he's only looking for a 2-year deal probably from the Rockets. We'll see. maybe in retrospect, if he gets a longer deal from the Rockets, none of this makes any sense. But I see this as a missed opportunity type season if their goal is make the playoffs and not tank again.
I would disagree with that in terms of that being too big of a step, I think, in their approach to the development of the team. I think you skip some steps if you bring in a star like KD. He might flash for 2 years, then he's gone. And now you've kind of, first off, maybe warped the development of some of your younger players, and you kind of force this pressure on the organization and the team to potentially move around assets sooner or move off of younger players sooner to try to capitalize on a window. And I think they're trying to take a slower approach. And that's why I guess we disagree. I think the slower approach is what I would think they need to do instead of, I guess, the bigger move for KD. But I can see your points too.
Yeah, it's more like I don't see their goals as it's okay if we just make the play-in. It sounds like what they want to do is make the playoffs. So even if it wasn't KD, I feel like they didn't do enough else to do that. Maybe I have egg on my face a year from now and they made the playoffs and like won a first round series. Sorry, I cut out a little bit. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I have egg on my face a year from now and they make the playoffs and maybe they win a series, but I doubt that. But with their current roster, I don't expect them to make the playoffs. And I feel like even if it wasn't KD, like I'm saying, I don't think that they made enough moves in this Western Conference for the expectation to make the playoffs, even though it seems like it is, especially because they made that commitment with the extension to Fox. And Wemby is 2 years away from his first extension kicking in, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just kind of like, I get taking the slower approach and I'm fine with that if that's the case. But I don't think some of the moves that they made indicate that they're okay with, okay, let's just make the play in. So I feel like there were other things that needed to happen in order to push them a little bit further. And maybe KD is too big of a step, but I feel like they should have done something else. And I feel like maybe they're going just a little bit too slow.
Yeah, well, let me slide in. Let me slide in on the middle of that then, because I'll give them a B-, and you guys detail it perfectly. I'm not going to go any further on it, but yeah, I think when I thought about KD going to the Spurs, I was almost more worried about them than if he went to the Rockets. But I think I've changed my mind on that, seeing how the Rockets developed, and I don't think I would have been as afraid of the Spurs had he had gone there. But yeah, like I've been questioning whether the Spurs should have gone more all in, because younger teams where you have stars like Wemby on their like first deal coming in as a rookie is very Oklahoma City, and they've just shown that can work. But so it's like, how fast do they move to try to make that happen? Because the path is there, but they don't have as, perfect of a roster as OKC in terms of like their players and their contracts. So maybe they're kind of waiting till they fizzle out a little bit more. I don't know, but I think I feel like
they should have made some kind of move toward a more coherent roster, even if it wasn't KD, like having another player that fills like a specific fit need. But
yeah, it's still not complete.
Like, Wemby is so young. He starts to make this leap. He gets the blood clotting condition that was a deep vein thrombosis, right? So they don't get as much time to assess like the fit with Fox and all this other stuff. And so this next season seems to be another information gathering season. But my impression is that they would love to have an information gathering season that at least resulted in a playoff berth. But I don't think that they're going to have that. Or I at least at this point don't think that it's fair to expect that latter part to make the playoffs.
I'm going to expect them to be really active.
It'll be interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the iteration of Wemby.
It might be pretty active deadline. I didn't make the Fox move. I know he was requesting them, but it surprised me when they did it. So maybe they're willing to be a little bit more aggressive midseason than I previously thought.
Okay. Let's go to the next one. One more, right? Or just the Jazz? Can you hear us, Grace? She's kind of frozen. Can you hear us?
I don't think she can.
She's stuck.
Am I back?
I can hear you
now. Am I
back
yet?
Okay.
And was it freezing on different faces?
You were. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I paused as soon as I got the little connection alert. Sorry, guys. We got residual hurricane, like edge of hurricane stuff going on here.
Right.
So that's probably why the internet's been weird. All right, last team. Will, this is going to be yours. We got the Utah Jazz. They drafted Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr. They traded John Collins for a second-round pick from the Clippers and Kyle Anderson they got from the Heat in that 3-team deal. They also got the right to buy out Kevin Love, which has not been done yet, so he's still on the roster. They traded RJ Lewis for Georges Niang and 2 more future second-round picks, so accumulating some second-round picks here. They also traded Colin Sexton and a second-round pick for Yusuf Nurkic from the Charlotte Hornets. They waived Johnny Juzang and Jaden Springer, and they bought out Jordan Clarkson, so cleared up some room in the backcourt-ish area there. So, Will, how would you rate the Jazz offseason?
Oh, man. Another one where it's hard to have a super strong opinion either way. I don't think it's like an F. Obviously, nothing to give them a super high grade either. Other than the fact that they did kind of move off the older players. And so they're not as stuck on a weird 2-timeline thing like maybe the Blazers or other teams, because you no longer have Sexton, you don't have Collins, but they have Nurkic, right? So that's weird. But and no longer have Clarkson, so they have
Nurkic on purpose. They paid to get Nurkic.
Yeah, which
they gave up a
definitely
pick
weird
to get Nurkic.
I was gonna give them a C, but because of that one, because it's just not quite fully there, I'll give them a D plus, I suppose. They have questions like with Walker Kessler coming up. What's that going to be? And I don't know. Lauri Markkanen's still there. He's
extension eligible. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So some questions remaining. It's like I can kind of see them working towards a direction, but it's just not fully realized yet. But they're going to be in the hunt to maybe get a really good pick, if not the first pick in the draft. So I don't know.
I don't know how many times we can do that song and dance now. It feels like
I know, right?
Ever since Danny Ainge has been there, they've just been like, well, we didn't get the first pick. We'll just do it again next year. I know they have Ace Bailey now, and it feels like, 3 or 4 years now they've been doing this, and they still don't have a true blue chip prospect. I also feel like they missed the window of trading their veteran players for more value. Like, I feel like Jordan Clarkson could have gone for a first-round pick within the last 2 trade deadlines, and they've just had to waive him because they've held on to him for too long. Colin Sexton being flipped for Yusuf Nurkic when you already have a Walker Kessler. Not Walker Kessler. Or, yeah, that is his name.
Walker Kessler.
My bad. Very weird.
You're mixing him up with Kessler Edwards?
Yes, I am.
Now he's relevant to the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like they've missed the opportunity of maximizing the assets they could have gotten for their players. And they're stuck with a bunch of young guys who are just not going to, I don't see panning out to be blue chip players that could be, tier 3 guys even. So they're still in purgatory pretty much.
Yeah.
So I have them at like a C-, and I think that's generous.
Yeah, that is. All right, Grace. Last grade.
Yeah, no, I actually also had a D+, so I feel like you were copying off my homework there. I gave them a 68 this offseason. It was kind of hard to grade because I felt like their draft was actually pretty good. I was questioning the Ace Bailey pick, but I think the idea there was like, this dude fell to us. We're not going to pass him up, especially when we've been having like fairly meh drafts over the last few seasons, even with these like lottery picks and late lottery picks and end of first round, like some pretty good end of first round picks when you look at like Kyle Filipowski and even Isaiah Collier, depending on how you think he can improve, especially efficiency wise. I like Walter Clayton Jr. I actually thought that the Jazz would have picked him because they wanted to trade him to other teams because there were so many other teams that were reportedly interested in him before the draft, especially more contending teams. He's not really like what I see as an upside play, but he's just like a good player. I just don't know how much he's going to play in Utah with Keontae George and Isaiah Collier both being there. So I feel like he's going to be like a potential trade candidate again, because I think I even though the Jazz didn't, I thought they'd trade him on draft night, but they didn't. I think that if I were them, I would be looking to flip him for a player, a pick, even if it's a bad pick or a couple of bad picks. If I were Utah. Also, like selfishly, like I want him to get out of there. I would like him to be on a good team, preferably the Nuggets or somewhere in the Eastern Conference. I wanted him for the Magic too. So, yeah, the Nurkic Sexton stuff just completely threw me off because I thought, I don't know, maybe it does aid in their tanking, but I feel like it doesn't because Nurkic, it depends on what kind of year Nurkic has. If he has another one like this last season, it could actually be a move in the direction of tanking, like in a move that was done with the purpose of being worse. Because it doesn't really make sense to me that they traded Colin Sexton to the Hornets either, because they have a serious backcourt log on that team, or backcourt backlog on that team. They have way too many shooting guards. So I don't really see what the value in that was for Charlotte either. Besides maybe like, I guess Sexton would be their best shooting guard. So they wanted to improve in that position. But I don't see what the motivation was for Utah. Like if you go out to get Nurkic because everybody else in the West has all these centers, that's a move that you make because you're trying to get better. But they're not. They're definitively tanking. And you can see it from the rest of the moves that they made. So I was just kind of left confused about it. And they still suck. So I gave them a D+. But that's carried heavily by their draft. Yeah. All right.
We did
it.
Well,
that's it for the Western Conference teams. I will give Chicken the floor on one Eastern Conference honorable mention before we wrap up the show.
Oh, that's going to be the Hawks. I give them an A for what they did this offseason. Getting to kill Alexander Walker, actually building what looks like a pretty competent team around Trae Young, 2 young wings, Nickeil Alexander Walker, pretty solid front court. In a year where the East is going to be garbage, they have a chance to actually
complete garbage,
make the conference finals again. So kudos to them. And then I just wanted to say overall, if we just take a step back and look at the grades we're talking about, there's not many needle movers like overall across the Western Conference. Like we had 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 4 A's, and one of them was our own team. So
yeah. And the other one was the defending champs that just brought their whole team back. And
right.
Yeah.
So
that is true. We think of the West as being like very strong, and there's some really good teams at the top for sure. But even some teams who could get to the top are kind of sliding down a little bit,
or just not getting better.
Yeah, it's a good sign
for us.
Yeah, for our chances. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting overall. I don't know if this is a ramification of the second apron where teams just don't feel like they can be as flexible as they used to be, or if the value of certain players just isn't what some expected, and there's just a lot of stalling going on. But it just feels like not as many improvements as we've seen in previous off seasons.
I'm trying to think about last off season, which teams had the A's. I feel like I gave Dallas an A, which was insane because I thought they had an awesome off season, and then they traded.
Completely blew it up.
I think they did. I still think they had an awesome off season, even if it was by accident, because I don't think that Nico is that good, or good at all. But adding Najee Marshall at that point, and then adding Klay Thompson, they just like added depth, and like they were already, good. They probably, the one thing they were missing was like a front court scoring threat. And they got that, but then they traded Luka to do it. So I don't think that they understood that assignment. I'm trying to think if this is different than last year, though. Oh, right. The Thunder definitely had an A for their offseason because they had added Caruso and added Hartenstein for sure. Mm-hmm. I don't know that I don't know that this offseason was. I think when you say there weren't any like big needle movers, I feel like a B+ or better offseason in the West is like a threat, because that could mean you made some really impactful margin moves, because a lot of the teams in the West are just already good. So in terms of like grading the offseason, it's about like improving from where you are. So I don't really think of like, you're not going to have most seasons where a team or more than one team is like the Rockets, where they are awesome and then they add Kevin Durant,
Yeah.
I think that an A off season in most instances is going to be those margin moves, especially for the West, that has so many teams that have their stars already, right?
Yeah. That's a good point.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody who joined our Casual Saturday live stream. If you made it this far, we appreciate you the most. If you do like our content, please remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as the notification bell. Leave us a review. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, anywhere you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. All our social links are in the description. Definitely remember to follow NBA Chicken on Twitter. Awesome. You put out an off-season guide every year, except this one. We all get busy. It's all good. But follow NBA Chicken for the tweets. If you're an Avs fan as well. If you're you're Tottenham?
Tottenham.
All right, Tottenham
all
Hotspur
the sports
fan.
teams in Denver, including lacrosse.
Follow for the tweets for sure. And always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks. Especially losing the trade like the Suns did with Kevin Durant.